When I was 12, I read The Giver for the first time. And I remember sitting there, this awkward little kid in a hoodie that was way too big for him, realizing that for the first time in my life, I understood loneliness. Not my loneliness exactly, someone else's loneliness. Jonas. Jonas lives in this world that on the surface looks perfect. No war, no pain, no hunger, no fear. Everyone's polite, everything's fair, and every part of your life is planned out for you. But the more you read, the more you start to feel the emptiness underneath all that order. There's no color, no music, no memories, no choice. And Jonas is the first person to see it, literally. When he's chosen to be the receiver of memory, he starts to experience everything his community has erased. The warmth of sunlight, the joy of love, the grief of loss. And that's when his loneliness really begins. Because he's the only one that remembers what it means to feel. He's surrounded by people who smile and speak kindly. They don't understand the things that make life beautiful or painful, real. I think that's what hit me so hard as a kid. That kind of loneliness. The kind that comes not from being alone, but from seeing the world differently than everybody else around you. And somehow that made me feel less lonely. It's funny, isn't it? How a story about a fictional kid in a fictional world can teach a real kid what it means to be human. And that's what we're talking about today. How fiction isn't just entertainment, it's practice, emotional rehearsal. The way we stretch our empathy, our imagination, our courage, all without leaving the page. Because fiction is how we practice being human. Stick around, because I'm going to show you how stories literally rewire our emotional brain, why that's more important now than ever, and how you can use fiction, reading it, writing it, even just talking about it, to become more deeply alive. Welcome, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Daniel, and this is the Story Renaissance. Here's something wild. When you read a story, your brain doesn't just imagine what's happening, it simulates it. When a character runs, your motor cortex lights up. When they cry, your motor neurons fire, the same ones that trigger when you cry. You don't just read stories, you live them. And that's why storytelling is one of humanity's oldest technologies. Before we had science, before writing, we had stories. Around fires, in caves, stories were how we said, this is what it's like to be me. That's empathy training, ancient and powerful. If you've ever finished a book and felt like a slightly different person, that's not a coincidence. That's your emotional intelligence literally expanding. Now let's talk about something people always get wrong. I'm sure you've heard it before. Fiction is just escapism. That reading novels or watching movies is a distraction from real life. But neuroscience completely destroys that idea. When you escape into a story, your brain is actually practicing real emotional responses. It's rehearsal. When you see a character face loss, rejection, love, or fear, your mind gets a safe virtual trial run. So when you face those moments, you're not starting from zero. You've already lived 1,000 lives before your first heartbreak, your first risk, your first goodbye. Fiction doesn't make us escape reality, it makes us ready for it. So next time someone calls your reading a waste of time, remember, you're doing emotional strength training. If that idea hits you, that stories actually help us evolve, then go ahead and gently tap that like button because it tells YouTube, hey, people need to hear this. Here's the second thing stories do. They hold up a mirror. When we see characters wrestling with choices, we start to notice those same conflicts in ourselves. Why do we root for the underdog? Why do redemption arcs make us cry? Why do we feel empathy when the villain shows just a hint of vulnerability for the first time? Because we see ourselves in them. Fiction is the safest place to confront our confusion, our darkness, and to ask questions that might be too painful in real life. It's no coincidence then that therapy often begins with, tell me your story. Storytelling is healing. When we engage with fiction, we're not escaping who we are, we're discovering it. Here's the third thing fiction connects us. Something that's made up can actually create real bonds. Think about it. How many friendships have started over the shared love of a book or a TV show? We fall in love with ideas together. A 14th century poet and a Gen Z writer might both be exploring loneliness centuries apart, yet through stories, they're in conversation. Stories are bridges across time, language, and difference. They remind us we're not alone in what we feel. If you've ever had a book, movie, or even a fanfic change you, I want to hear about it. So drop a comment down below with the story that hits you the hardest. Now here's where things get interesting. Storytelling itself is evolving. AI is changing how we create fiction, and some people find that terrifying, that machines can generate stories now. But I don't think it's the end of creativity. I think it's the beginning of a renaissance. Because the heart of storytelling was never about the tool. It was always about connection. The act of saying, here's what it feels like to be me. And now we have new ways to do that, faster, wider, and together. We're standing at the edge of something huge. But it's up to us to make sure that as technology grows, humanity grows with it. That's exactly why I started my creative community. It's called the Story Renaissance, a school community for writers, readers, and storytellers. Because fiction is more important now than ever, and AI is changing the way that we create it. We share creative prompts and discussions, monthly live events with other writers, AI tools, tips, and experiments. It's a quiet space for meaningful conversation, not social media noise. And you can start right now for free. If you've been craving real connection with people who get it, come join us. The link's right down in the description. Fiction isn't how we escape life, it's how we practice being alive. Every story we love, every one we tell, changes us, even in tiny ways. So keep reading, keep writing, keep imagining better worlds, because every time you do, you're helping us build one. If you want more conversations just like this about writing, creativity, and what it really means to be human, then subscribe because we have so much more coming. Thank you for watching, and remember, your story matters more than you think.